Good evening, everyone. Welcome to this panel webinar that is being hosted by the National Society of High School Scholars. I'm here from Delta Airlines, Delta TechOps to be specific, and we're here to talk about what it takes to keep an airline flying, potential careers with Delta TechOps, and just kind of what we do as an organization. So getting into things, let's talk about what Delta, well, actually, sorry, let's go through a little bit of background of who we are. Introducing myself, my name is Brooks Dishman. I'm from Fayetteville, Georgia, born and raised here in the Atlanta metro area. I went to Georgia Institute of Technology and got my Bachelor of Science in Mechanical Engineering. Just a short year or two ago, I got my master's in engineering management from Kennesaw State University. And I've worked for Delta since 2018 through a couple of different roles. So I've been a co-op at Delta in liaison engineering. I was a liaison engineer right after I graduated. I did some process engineering in our engine maintenance facility. And my current role is a Boeing Structures project engineer. I know that that probably sounds like a lot of jargon to most everybody on the call, but we're going to go through kind of what these different teams do and what the roles are all about so that you can learn a little bit about Delta TechOps. So I'd like to introduce my co-host here. Uh, Haley, would you like to go through your background?
Sure. Yeah. Hello, everybody. Really excited to get to talk with y'all today. My name is Haley Erickson Hubert. I am also from Fayetteville, but unlike Brooks, I'm not from Fayetteville, Georgia. I am from Fayetteville, North Carolina. I did go to Georgia Tech as well. I got my bachelor's degree in aerospace engineering while I was there. I started working at Delta in 2015. You may notice some similarities between Brooks and my career history, what you see on the slide. Our paths have been relatively similar, although with some differences. So I started also as a co-op and liaison in 2015. After I graduated, I went into the structures engineering world. I started on the Airbus structures team and have since moved into the management space. I'm now the manager of the Boeing structures team and am in the next couple of weeks going to be transitioning to a new role out of the structures realm. I'll be the 1737 fleet manager for our Boeing fleets at Delta. And like Brooke said, we'll get into a little bit what all of that means as we go through the presentation. So hopefully what maybe seems unfamiliar now by the end will be a little bit more familiar.
So let's talk a little bit about what Delta Airlines is. I'm sure a lot of you are kind of familiar with the name, but here's some interesting facts about Delta. First off, we have over 1,000 aircraft, and those 1,000 aircraft are split between 27 different models of airplanes. So this is from different manufacturers. We have Boeing airplanes, we have Airbus airplanes, we also have Airbus Canada airplanes. These are things that you probably recognize, names like the Boeing 737, some that you might not recognize, like the 717. That's a pretty rare aircraft. We're the only operator, or soon to be the only operator flying that aircraft still. We're also picking up new Boeing airplanes, so we're supposed to get the 787 sometime in the next 5 to 10 years. We also have Airbus airplanes, so we have everything from the A319, the 320, the 321. We've got the 330, and then our big flagship, as we like to call it, is the A350. That's the cool, fancy, wide body, flies you to Europe, South Africa, everywhere around the world. Special thing about that airplane is it's actually made all out of composites, so it's kind of a plastic airplane. Speaking of traveling all over the world, we go to over 300 destinations worldwide. Although we have all of those different destinations, our hometown is here in Atlanta. We've been here for much longer than I've worked for the company. We're proud to call Atlanta our home, and that's where Haley and I both work. Um, Speaking of old, we are actually the oldest still operating U.S. airline. So, although others were born before us, they have since kind of fallen away. And just last year, around this time last year, we celebrated our 100th anniversary as a company. So if you know anything about the aviation industry, especially the commercial aviation industry, there's a lot of like companies come, companies go, a lot of movement, but Delta has been a steadfast, big name in the industry, and we're proud to be one of the best airlines in the world. But that best airline in the world is only as good as our people. So we employ over 100,000 people across the world. A lot of them are here in Atlanta, but we also have people spread all across. Everywhere that we have to fly, we've got to have people there to receive our passengers, receive our planes, keep things moving. So you can work anywhere in the world, essentially working for Delta Airlines. But Haley and I work for a special part of Delta Airlines. So we work for what's called Delta TechOps. Delta TechOps is what we call the maintenance organization of the airline. So we're not the ones flying the airplanes. We're not the ones making sure passengers are safe and comfortable while in flight. Those are our pilots and our flight attendants. We're not the ones receiving the aircraft, the bags, things like that, but we are the ones that are making sure that the aircraft is safe, reliable, compliant, and comfortable. So these are our goals as an organization. We are trying to provide the airline with aircraft that are safe for every single flight, that are reliable, that they leave on time and work when they are supposed to work, that they are compliant so that everything that we do is legal, and then that they are comfortable for our passengers. So things like the types of seats that are on the airplanes, the in-flight entertainment, Wi-Fi, all those types of things, we actually manage those systems. And we don't do it alone. So we have over 10,000 employees. So that's a tenth of Delta's workforce is the what I consider the best mechanics, inspectors, engineers, and other, support personnel working for our airline. One thing that you'll hear if you ever get into the industry is that we're kind of an admired company, not to toot our own horns. So when you go and get on the job market and you have Delta as a previous position on your resume, people are like, "Oh wow, this person knows what they're doing." So, but we don't actually only do work for Delta Airlines, the company. We actually do work for other aviation companies around the world. So, we are what's called a maintenance repair overhaul provider. So that means that we're licensed by the FAA to work on other people's equipment. We are the largest maintenance repair overhaul provider in North America, and actually the seventh largest, depending on how you measure it, possibly the fourth largest MRO provider in the world. So we have a huge maintenance facility in Atlanta. We work on everything from the full aircraft down to the engines. So we do a lot for a lot of people. So let's talk about how Delta TechOps is organized. So the the thing that we're all trying to support is the operation of the airline at the top. We want to make sure that there are no disruptions for our passengers, that every flight goes off without a hitch. And the big standing block underneath that is what we call maintenance. So these are the individuals actually turning the wrenches on the airplanes, the ones that are replacing the parts, measuring the oil, doing everything from replacing a toilet seat to pulling an entire engine off of the airplane and putting a new one on. These are those talented maintenance personnel, but they can't do it all themselves. So we have different pillars within the organization that support maintenance. So going through a couple of these, I'll go through in more detail in just a minute. We've got supply chain, we've got inventory and logistics, engineering, our maintenance control center, data analytics, quality assurance, IT planning. All of these are different non-maintenance personnel that are holding up maintenance and in turn holding up the operation. So where Haley and I find ourselves in the engineering pillar, but there are a lot of career opportunities and a lot of different pillars here. And one thing that you'll find is no matter where you work at Delta, it's a great place to work. So let's focus in on maintenance a little bit. We've got four main groups of maintenance. So we have line maintenance. These are the mechanics that are doing work on the airplane when it's sitting at the airport at the gate. So unfortunately, if you're one of these passengers who finds themselves delayed on a flight due to a maintenance issue, these are the talented people who are trying to solve that maintenance issue. They also do a lot of work overnight. So every time the airplane is parked at the gate overnight, we're trying to do maintenance then because that's when the aircraft is already out of service. That way we don't have to interrupt any passenger service. So these people are pulling a lot of all-nighters, doing a lot of work overnight to make sure the aircraft is ready in the morning. So we also have what we call hangar maintenance. Hangar maintenance is you pull the aircraft into the large aircraft hangar, and we're doing big stuff. This is where we're taking engines off, we're replacing landing gear. We do what we call check visits. Check visits, you pull the airplane down to its last nut and bolt, make sure everything is good, inspect things, replace things, put everything back together. Sometimes these aircraft are on the ground for up to 2 months for a hangar visit. It's a lot of time and a lot of pulling the aircraft apart. The next thing that we have is what we call shop maintenance. So shop maintenance, these are the individuals, they're not working on the aircraft itself, but sometimes you take things off the airplane that have to be worked kind of separate from the aircraft. So a good example of this is landing gear. That's what these individuals here are actually working on, is some landing gear parts. So landing gear is so big, it's really complex, it's hard to work on when it's attached to the airplane. So what we do instead is we take it off, we send it to a landing gear shop, and the landing gear shop takes it apart, inspects it, does their own kind of specialized checks and machining work, and they put it back together, and then it's ready to be put on an aircraft again. Finally, we have a special type of shop maintenance, and that's the engine shop. So the engines are so complicated, they have so many parts that they actually get their own entire wing of maintenance. These individuals are doing the same kind of thing that a normal shop does. They're taking the engine down to its last nut and bolt, looking at everything, putting everything back together. The engines are just so complicated and they're so important that we have to make sure we take like every little bit of detail, look at everything very closely. That's why they get their own kind of organization structure. So let's look at some of these pillars. Supply chain. Supply chain, these are the individuals who manage what comes into the airline, into the organization, and it could be a physical material, so making sure that we're bringing in good parts to the airline, things that are reliable and we can trust the individuals delivering it to us. Or it could be services, so we sometimes contract out maintenance services. The supply chain individuals are making sure that we get the top quality from all of the inputs into our organization. Inventory and logistics, this team is focused on making sure that all the physical parts and materials are in the right place at the right time. So you can imagine all of these airplanes flying all over the world. Although we're located primarily in our hub is here in Atlanta, we do a lot of maintenance all around the world. And these individuals make sure that every single part is in the right place at the right time. So if we think that we're going to have to change a wheel in LaGuardia, New York, they make sure that there's a wheel ready for that airplane. If we have to change a light bulb in Johannesburg, South Africa, we make sure that that light bulb is in Johannesburg ready for the airplane. Engineering, my personal favorite, probably a little bit of bias here. So what we do is we kind of make sure that the aircraft is safe, we make sure it's compliant, and we work on reliability of the aircraft as well. Haley's going to go through all of the different types of engineering in a little bit, but our main focus is kind of inspecting the aircraft to make sure that we're detecting anything that's wrong. We modify the aircraft and we also repair the aircraft. We do this by writing instructions, making drawings, and we do a lot of safety risk assessments to really focus in on the safety and make sure everything that we're doing is good. The maintenance control center. So these are what we like to call master mechanics. So they're a point of contact that if a mechanic anywhere in the world at any time of day has a question, they can call these individuals and ask for help. So it could be something as simple as, I don't understand what this procedure is saying, or they could be running into a big scenario. So maybe there's a hailstorm in one of our maintenance stations and we have a lot of aircraft that have a lot of potential damage. So the maintenance control center will help coordinate what airplanes are we going to inspect first, because we got to make sure that we prioritize which aircraft are leaving first. So we'll inspect those. If we see ones that are damaged that we think we're going to need to do repairs on, they'll kind of help prioritize those and coordinate with engineering so that engineering can write the repairs. And they also do a lot of troubleshooting work. So when something's broken on the airplane, not every mechanic knows every single thing about the airplane. But these master mechanics, I think we can say, know just about every single thing about their airplanes. A growing career, I think, in pretty much every industry at this point. We've got a lot of data analytics personnel within our organization. So um, we all kind of know what data analytics is. We collect data, we organize it, and we kind of transform it to help us make decisions. So this is a lot of kind of looking at what parts are failing when and prioritizing replacing those parts before they fail. Or it could be looking at fuel efficiency of aircraft and seeing can we optimize like the type of maintenance that we do and put modifications on the aircraft to make them more fuel efficient. All of these things we're using data to focus in on. Quality assurance is a big piece of the organization. So not only is Delta very proud about the quality that we produce, but we also recognize that a lot of people are putting trust in our hands every single day when they fly on our airplanes. So we want to make sure that we are producing the top quality for all of our customers. So that means that every single thing we do, there is somebody checking over the work and making sure that it is done properly and correctly. These individuals, they're not just checking what maintenance is doing when they're turning the wrenches, they're also making sure that I'm doing the right job as an engineer. They're also checking in on all of these other organizational pillars to make sure that we're doing everything safely and legally. IT, information technology. So um, I don't think that there's a single large organization in the world that could survive without an IT team. Everything that we do is dependent on computer systems, and we use some pretty old computer systems at Delta, but they manage to keep them running, and they keep them running so reliably. Um, and they have a very difficult job. You know, it's not just making sure that all of the people have their laptops. It's making sure that we have reliable servers that can support the operation 24/7, 365 days a year. And our final pillar is planning. So planning isn't the team that's kind of figuring out which airplane goes where when. That's a different part of the organization. Planning is making sure that we're doing all of the maintenance things that we need to do at the times that we need to do them. So engineering might say, you know, we want to make sure that we replace these wheels every 30 days. Planning is coordinating to make sure that the plane is going before it reaches that 30-day limit. It's going to the right place where personnel can replace the wheels. And they're making sure that they're coordinating with logistics and inventory to make sure the wheels are there. So they have a very complicated job coordinating a lot of maintenance tasks on every single airplane. But those are the kind of 8 pillars that support maintenance and support the operation at Delta. I'm going to hand it over to Haley here now, and she's going to talk about some of the specific engineering teams at Delta.
Thank you, Brooks. Yeah, so just like Brooks mentioned, he just gave what was, I think, a great kind of comprehensive overview of tech ops as a whole, and he touched on engineering. We're going to dive in a little bit to what that looks like more specifically now. So, just a note as we kind of get into things, you'll notice that there's some commonalities maybe between the different engineering groups that we're going to go through. We'll kind of summarize what that is and why that is as we wrap up. But if you find yourself saying, seems like you're kind of saying the same thing, just to a different tune as we go through the engineering teams, in a way, I will be, but we'll talk about why that is as we go through these slides. So, first up, Fleet Engineering. This is the organization that Brooks and I currently work in. There are several different like groupings to fleet engineering. First is focused on our safety and compliance relative to the regulatory requirements that exist for our aircraft. Um, Within the space of the FAA, they're issuing different laws or airworthiness directives, ADs, that mandate Delta go inspect our airplanes, repair them, modify them, a multitude of different things. And they have those requirements existing on very specific aircraft for with very specific time limits that we must adhere to. And all of this exists so that we can address potentially unsafe conditions on our airplane. Fleet is kind of the home of the processing of these documents within our organization, the greater organization of TechOps as a whole. Outside of that, Brooks touched on reliability really briefly as he was talking through the engineering pillar, and that is the other really large focus of our organization. We're really broken out in such a way that we're looking at the regulatory piece on one side and then the reliability piece on the other. In that sense, we're looking at our operation, what we're doing, what types of things we're seeing that affect your ability as a passenger to be able to leave on time or arrive on time, and go forth and really find those areas that are kind of hurting us the most so we can really tackle them, try to understand what can we do from an engineering perspective to remove the risk of these conditions really popping up and affecting our operation day to day, or ultimately y'all as passengers. Really, to do all of this, we are developing projects and we are implementing those projects. We're coordinating with different teams across TechOps to make what is a final product where we've got maintenance that can be accomplished with the materials that you need and the tools that you need on hand. We, just final note on fleet, and this is true for some of the other engineering organizations as well, are kind of the first stop of the show when there is some sort of a big significant safety issue that's come up. These issues can look at, I think the common example I kind of fall back on is the Alaskan Airlines mid exit door plug departure. When different things like that happen, whether it be to Delta or to another airline, if it is big and it's significant and it's something that warrants us to say, we could have something unsafe going on, we are really that first stop for going ahead and making that call. There is an assessment that we're doing to understand what are the risks to our fleet based on the information that we know. And we'll ultimately, as a business, decide how Delta moves forward from there. But it often means that we're doing inspections or campaigns of our fleet to make sure that whatever significant issue has been identified is not present on our aircraft as soon as possible. Brooks, you can go. Thank you. Okay, so component engineering. This is a group that is really, really focused on repairs, and how we repair and optimize the work that our component shops, which Brooks mentioned, are accomplishing their work. This group in particular, kind of like fleet, has a couple of different set of responsibilities that they are working to day. But essentially, the core of what they're doing is still really similar to fleet. You're analyzing, instead of the airframe as a whole, you're analyzing the components that are coming off of the aircraft and going to the shops for overhauls, inspections, modifications, repairs, whatever it may be. And you're making sure that really these components will, one, be, compliant with whatever regulatory items are out there, but two, and this is really, really big on the component side, reliable. Components have a tendency at times to fail because of the nature of what they are. And so looking at the reliability of these components, often partnering with our fleet engineering teams, is a big, big focus area for this group. I mentioned the shop, and Brooks, like I said, to mention the shop as he was talking through the pillars of our maintenance space. Our component engineering teams are really working directly with the shops day in and day out. And outside of helping facilitate maintenance with those shops, they are also really trying to assess how the different processes that we use to interact with each other, to interact with the components that we are doing work on, with the overhaul facilities that we are shipping parts to in certain cases, really focused on, is that process all running the way that it should be? And are there opportunities to really enhance or better the data that we're collecting, the processes that we're using to allow us to really work smarter and continue to work smarter as time goes on. Repairs outside of ensuring component reliability is the other big thing to really note about component engineering. They are supporting our shops day in and day out, and that means they're writing engineering paperwork to approve different repairs that may be necessary to components that have been identified as damaged. Typically, component repairs can be a bit more specialized. Sometimes we're talking about composite materials. Sometimes we're talking about parts that have a lot going on with them, both structurally and from a systems perspective. The component engineering team is really the experts in the building or in the tech ops space as it relates to how we can best repair our components and ultimately keep them reliable and bring them back into service when we need them. We can go to the next. Okay, propulsion engineering is similar to fleet and to components, but almost like a combination of the two in a way. So, whereas fleet engineering is looking at compliance with regulations, at reliability of the airframe, and components is looking at how to support our shop so that we can repair components as they are coming through and needing engineering input. Propulsion kind of does a little bit of all of that, except for the engine. They are looking at and processing those regulations just like we do in fleet engineering that have been issued by the FAA, but they're doing that for the different areas of the aircraft as a whole that have been identified as being engine related. And that sounds like it would be really straightforward, but there's some grayness in between how we define airframe and engine. So we really look at all the different subject matters and that are related to the engine, and there's calls that we make about who processes what. But ultimately, we're still doing the same thing, just for different parts of the aircraft. Not components, propulsion also is looking at the reliability of the engine, much like we do in fleet at the airframe level, and much like they do in components at the component level. We've got folks in our propulsion engineering department that are doing the same thing, but for the engine and the different components that are on the engine. There is also a subset of the propulsion engineering space that is operating more like our component engineering shops do, and our component engineering teams do from a repair support perspective. So in our engine space, there are a multitude. I mean, there's so many different shops that are necessary to be run by our maintenance folks to then be able to maintain the engines that we have. Our propulsion engineering team, specifically the subset of that team that's focused on repairs, is working with the shops day in and day out to help facilitate those repairs in the event that there have been damages that are identified. We do all of this work not only for ourselves as Delta, but for other airlines as well. Brooks mentioned earlier our maintenance, repair, and overhaul capabilities that we have at Delta TechOps. It's something great that kind of allows us to stand out a little bit as an airline and really diversify how we are or what our profile is as a business. Engines and the whole space of propulsion is an area where customer support and being a maintenance, repair, and overhaul provider is very, very important to us. So when I talk through compliance, reliability, and shop support, that is something that we're doing not only for ourselves, but for our customers as well. All right, liaison engineering is a repair specific team. This is where Brooks and I both first started our time at Delta. I think we are both very thankful for that because being in an environment like the liaison space really can drive you to learn a lot in a very short amount of time. So, liaison engineering is a 24/7 support group for our mechanics all around the world, our line maintenance technicians, at times our shop support folks, and also our hangar maintenance folks. Liaison engineering is at all hours of the day answering the phone to actually assess different damages that have been identified by maintenance and do the things necessary or do the assessments necessary to give maintenance instructions that they can then go use and accomplish on the aircraft to repair it and return it to an airworthy condition. I kind of like to describe liaison as a two-parted organization. On the one hand, you have your emergency room. That is our support for our line maintenance technicians. From an engineering perspective, it's all hours of the day, any time from all over the world, whether it be somewhere in Europe, any place in America, really anywhere Delta flies. We're getting calls not just from our mechanics, but from our maintenance control center as well. And we are essentially assessing aircraft that actively have people on them. Potentially. We want to make sure that the customer experience is not affected, but we also need to make sure that we're doing what's necessary to get the aircraft safe again. And so, in that kind of emergency room setting, we're very quickly moving and quickly assessing and making determinations about how, typically on a time limited basis, we can repair the aircraft and get it into a better positioning to have a full permanent repair accomplished or part replacement, whatever it may be, as a final fix that's been determined is necessary. We also have our hangar support side of the liaison engineering group as well. And this is really engineers that are focused, I would say, almost more of like an ICU. So, where in an emergency room you have a bad cut and you need that to be fixed, and in an ICU, maybe you have a intensive something happening internally that needs special care and extra attention. That is really what our hangar support teams are doing. This is where we're addressing the different damages that are found in the check environment, which Brooks mentioned. And we're really seeing a very different type of damage, but we're taking the steps that are necessary again to assess that condition and ultimately arm our mechanics with the necessary approvals and instructions to really bring the aircraft back to a safe condition. Alrighty. Our interiors and cabin engineering organization is quite the fun one. They, again, do a lot of work that's similar to these other engineering groups that we've talked about, but they are focused on the reliability, repairability, and the support of our interior components on the airframe. These are the things that, as passengers, you would see really as your whole experience. The seats that you sit in, the entertainment that you have on your seat back, the bag bins that are installed for you to be able to place bags, partitions that separate the different the classes that we have on the flights. All of these different things are the types of things that our interiors and cabin engineering team is responsible for. Again, doing very similar type of work to that of fleet and liaison, really kind of together, reliability, repair, regulatory stuff. Cabin and interiors are doing that, but they're doing it specifically for our um, interior components. They also oversee paint of the airframe, which is an interesting thing. One may not think that, and when you see an airplane, that it would ever, look anything different than that. We do remove and reapply paint at regular intervals on the airframe, and that is something that, one, allows us to keep the condition of the skin itself of the airframe in good shape by reapplying paint that maybe has degraded over time. But two, it allows us to really then drive different changes to how the Delta paint job or livery looks. So our cabin and interiors team is responsible for just that, kind of the look of the exterior of the aircraft, but also the look of the interior of the aircraft. So it's pretty fun stuff that they're doing over there. Our final engineering group to cover today is actually quite different from the rest that we've talked about, where there's a lot of different commonalities in the other five. Performance is a bit different. So they're actually looking at the performance of the aircraft. You may be wondering, what does that mean? This is our fuel efficiencies, our weight and balance, our runway, our compatibility, things that are necessary to be able to operate in an aircraft from a not structural or systematic perspective, but actually like how it aerodynamically performs in the sky is what our performance engineering team is looking at. The work that they do requires working a lot more closely with our folks that are doing bag loading, things like that, because the weight and the balance of the aircraft is so very sensitive. And our performance engineering team being responsible for that has to do a lot of coordination with our maintenance folks or our Delta folks that are responsible for, and just as an example, bag loading, because how throw your bags into the cabin is greatly going to affect really how your aircraft itself is balanced. Outside of working with those folks, performance is also doing a lot of work more with our pilots and our flight crews because they are the ones who are actually operating the aircraft that is sending out that data as to how it is performing. So, really getting into a lot of different areas with performance than we really do in a lot of the other engineering groups. But it is, again, something that is super critical. It is necessary for us to be able to operate our aircraft, one, safely, because balance is very key for aircraft flying in the sky, but also to make sure that we're following all the different regulatory requirements and are prepared for any sort of emergency situations that pop up in the ways that we need to be. So to sum it all up, what does an engineer do at Delta? We are assessing a lot of different data, and we are using those assessments to do a couple of different things. First and foremost, all the time, we're making sure that the aircraft is safe, whether we're looking at a fleet-wide issue or an individual aircraft that has something going on with it. We are doing assessments to ensure that the aircraft is safe. But we're also doing assessments to ensure that the aircraft is reliable. And to be able to do any of that, we're often having to really work with our maintenance folks, work with folks from all the different pillars that Brooks brought up when he was speaking to essentially get the work done and get it done in the ways that we need to. For us, that's developing projects as engineers where we're writing instructions or writing different repair documents that we will share with our maintenance folks, our flight crews, ground crews, and we're doing all of that together collaboratively so that we can, again, keep the airplane safe. We ultimately are, like I said, we're developing projects, but those projects are geared at doing a lot of different things. But it can be summed up as inspecting, repairing, and modifying the aircraft. Um, Ultimately, I think it kind of boils down to the three things. We have groups that are focused on repairing our aircraft, maintaining compliance, and addressing regulatory items on our aircraft, and making sure that they are reliable. Airlines are big and they are complicated, and there's a lot that's happening to keep this kind of big ship afloat. But with these different focuses on the structure of our aircraft, the systems, the components, the interiors, the engines themselves. I think we're able to do that pretty well day in and day out. So yeah, that kind of summarizes what we do. And now we're gonna transition into talking a little bit about our co-op program. So for those of you that are not familiar with a co-op, when you get to college, a co-op is kind of like an extended internship, whereas an internship is something that typically is a one semester requirement. A co-op, especially a co-op at Delta, is something that is a 3 semester requirement, and you're typically alternating work in school. But to even be able to be considered for said long internship or co-op, there's a couple of different criteria or requirements that you have to be aware of. Have to first and foremost be able to maintain a GPA of greater than 2.5. Also, upon entering our program, if extended an offer, you do have to have a minimum of 30 credit hours. You also have to be able to make that 3 semester commitment. So you're alternating work and school. This is something that absolutely does have the potential to extend your graduation out. But it really is an experience that's pretty wonderful. I think Brooks and I both would agree on that front that we are really thankful for the co-op program. And even though it took me forever to graduate from school because of how when and how I did my time, I wouldn't trade it for anything. You do have to be enrolled in school the entire time to be a part of the co-op program as well. So not only do you make that commitment, yes, I can be there 3 semesters, but yes, I have enough classes remaining to be able to stay enrolled as a student throughout the entirety of the time working at Delta. And the final requirement is really being able to relocate to Atlanta. So airlines are big and they're complicated, and they benefit strongly from in-person interactions and really having face-to-face connections with folks and having access to the aircraft that we have in our hangars and to really all the different folks that are necessary to keep things running here. So with Atlanta being our major home base and the major home base of all of the engineering work that we do within TechOps, that is another one of those requirements that we have. Has to be able to really be relocated to Atlanta and to work a standard 40-hour week. What to expect? Delta co-ops are great. Like I said, I am biased, of course, but I wouldn't trade my experience for anything. We try our best to, for those that are getting offers, make sure that they're placed in places that really feel like a good fit and a good match based on your areas of interest and where we think that you will thrive. A lot of folks will typically ask, oh, if you do a Delta co-op, can you rotate around different departments to see, like, is there something I like best? Unfortunately, no, you can't. When you have a co-op at Delta, it is a requirement that you stay in the same department really for that whole of the 3 semester time or commitment that you have the co-op. But it is intentional because the work that you are being assigned, it means something and it has a real impact on our business. For you to be able to be effective at that big, real, meaningful work, it does mean that we need to really build you into a full-blown engineer or data analyst, whatever it may be, from the start of your time to the end of your time as a co-op. We really expect that by the end of folks' time with us, they're really functioning kind of as full-fledged engineers. So that is yeah, I guess what we really want is for you to have that full experience and be able to kind of go from just learning what Delta is and how we operate to really how to thrive and how to be a successful engineer at Delta or anywhere else. We do, as I've mentioned a couple of times, a lot of different work with a lot of different folks all around tech ops and even with the FAA, with the manufacturers of our aircraft. Just something to note is that I think our co-op is something that is typically pretty hands-on in the sense that you are directly working with our aircraft either at a fleet level or at an individual aircraft level. Um, and that's something that can be really, really special. We are big on being hands-on where we can be and collaborating where we can be. So having the access to all the tech ops facilities really allows us to thrive there, which is great. Final two notes. Mentorship, hugely important in our co-op program. Everybody has an assigned mentor and works with them really closely to, again, go on that journey of first semester learning what we are, how we operate, to final term, full-fledged engineer. Travel is the big thing. We do have travel benefits as a part of our program for our co-op students. It is a great benefit. It's super fun and really provides an opportunity to, on standby travel, get to see the world, which is, like I said, it's very fun. It's an exciting thing, and it's very unique. And when I was a co-op, it allowed me a lot of opportunities that I otherwise never would have had. Okay, and I think that kind of wraps up our presentation, but we've got some time left for questions. I don't know if there's anything
We
in
do
the.
have one already.
Okay,
Um,
great.
so the question that we have here is, can you participate in the co-op program if you are getting your master's degree, or is it only for undergraduate students? So you can participate as a master's student. The only requirement is that you are enrolled the entire time you are co-oping. I will caution just a little bit around master's programs is that things get a little bit complicated with master's degrees because some schools have different requirements about when you take classes during certain semesters. And like you may be trying to take a class that is only offered in the spring semester. But if you are scheduled to work that semester, that means that you would not be able to take that class until the next spring. You also have to make sure that you are going to be enrolled for the entirety of the 3 semesters when you co-op. So we do accept co-ops who are master students. You just have to put a little bit more thought and care into coordinating your classes and everything. If you are interested in co-oping as a master's student, I highly recommend you kind of coordinate with your advisor and um, maybe with if you get to the point of an interview or something like that, talking with your interviewer to make sure that you understand when you would be required to work so that you can kind of make sure that that plan works. One thing that we touched on, the 3 semester requirement, I will let you know that it is a very big commitment, and we take it very seriously because it's a big commitment. So Delta is, our foundational personality traits are, accountability, a sense of integrity and responsibility among all of our employees. So if you commit to those 3 semesters, that's your very first test of your accountability and your responsibility. So if you fail on that very first test, I think that that's probably a bad sign and likely going to impact your future employment opportunities with Delta because you've now represented that you aren't someone who matches kind of our core tenets as an employee at Delta. I am also going to share in the chat just a link to our early careers site. So this is kind of the website that is built around students who might be co-oping. We do have a limited number of internships with kind of our operations side of the house, although TechOps does only do co-ops. Do we have any other questions? These don't have to be just about Delta Airlines. These can be about going to school, what it's like um, working while you're in school, um, what it's like kind of being in the professional work field, anything like that. Anybody at all? Did we just do such a good job? No one has any questions.
I have something just kind of to leave the presentation off. What is your best advice to students in high school and kind of getting their bearings on what they want to do and how to, transition from high school to college and then into their career?
Um, I'll start off and then I'll let Haley give her answer this question because we might have slightly different perspectives on this. So, I am very much of the opinion that you don't need to know what you want to do. Um, you don't need to know for certain that you want to be an engineer, or that you want to do data analytics, or that you want to be um, you know, there's so many different roles and opportunities out there in the world. I am still definitely, I think Haley can attest to this. I'm still trying to figure out what I want to do when I grow up. And I'm 31 years old at this point, so I may sound like I'm grown up to everyone here who's in high school, but I definitely don't feel like I'm grown up and like I figured everything out. So I think it's important to understand what you enjoy about a job, though, and what you enjoy about a field. So I've always been interested in airplanes. I've always been interested in aviation. So it was kind of easy for me to go into the aviation field, but I'm asked about like what's my 5 year career plan? What do I want to do? Like what position do I want to have? And it's not so much important about what job you're doing, the specific title. It's important about the things that you do in the job and whether those things are engaging and attractive to you. So, I'm somebody who likes to solve problems. So I gravitate towards roles where I get to solve problems. And right now I'm solving big, complicated problems with these projects that I coordinate. I also like seeing the impact of the work that I'm doing, which is one of the reasons why I liked working in liaison engineering when I started my career, because in the emergency room setting of that department, you get to look at the end of your shift and say, wow, look at all of the work that I did, all of the impact that I had today. And then finally, I like to help people. So the reason why I'm here, doing this presentation with you guys is that I really enjoy investing in the next generation and kind of sharing the things that I've learned throughout the years and bringing people up. So it's less important about, am I always going to be an engineer in my career? It doesn't really matter, and I don't really care if I'm always an engineer. But I care about those three things. I always want to be solving problems. I always want to be seeing my impact, and I always want to be helping people. So kind of think about what's what's important and interesting to you from a position. Do you want to be someone who's solving problems, or do you want to be someone who is helping people? Do you want to be someone who works alone? Do you want to be innovating the next big invention? Do you want to be your own boss? These are all things to think about rather than kind of the specific job title that you want.
Yeah, I think I'll pretty much fully agree with exactly what Brooke said, and I'll just say this. I think in if you don't know what you exactly want to do yet, like definitely don't fret. The more things that you get to try and that you choose to say yes to and kind of open your mind up to as you are going through school with your classes or the clubs that you're involved in, or when you're working professionally, all those different things are going to be different little tidbits of data and experience that helps you understand and really come to what do I like and what do I not like and what do I want, like what fulfills me. But without taking those opportunities and really like putting yourself out there and being involved, especially again when you're less sure about what path is the path for you. um, you'll find that you can be limited a little bit. So I would say if we're thinking about, advice as to how to transition and what to focus on as you're transitioning from high school to college or even from college to the professional workspace, I will say this: it is important to ask questions. It is important to try new things, even if they seem uncomfortable and a little bit scary, because whether you do or you don't know what you want to do in the end, any amount of experience is going to help you figure that out. And there's nothing wrong with doing something and being like, wow, I hate this. This is terrible. Because ultimately, now you know that's something that's not for you. And so to have experiences, diverse experiences in lots of different areas where you can, again, while sometimes uncomfortable, is going to be really helpful, I think, for figuring yourself out and really finding yourself in your path as you go to college and then to the professional workspace. I think we have one more question in the Q&A. The question is the interviewing process competitive? I will say at a high level, yes, but I don't have numbers necessarily to back that up. I say yes because there are a lot of different avenues with which one can apply to a Delta co-op. There is the website which Brooks has shared the link to. That website is something that's accessible via LinkedIn. We're sharing it at conferences. We're doing lots of different things to get the word out there. And so the pool of folks that we're looking at can be pretty large. That being said, don't let that discourage you. I mean, cheesy, I guess, but miss 100% of the shots that you don't take. So like go for it, even if it is maybe a process that it can be a little bit competitive. And if you can find ways to meet somebody face to face. I'm a big advocate for career fairs and conferences like SWE and NSBE and SHEP. Go to those, be involved in those, because having the opportunity to make a face to face connection is going to really, really be a big game changer in how you're initially perceived when you are, interested in an opportunity like this. So the pool itself becomes very, very different as you are really putting yourself out there and going to those different conferences and career fairs and everything. So, as much as you can, find those types of opportunities. Don't let yourself be discouraged because there is, again, like a big benefit to going out and trying. And the worst thing that happens is that you'll move on to try and find the next opportunity. The best thing that happens is you've, shown all your stuff and you're getting a co-op at Delta and getting the opportunity to learn and soak everything up that we have to offer.
So, with that final answer, I want to thank everybody for joining us this evening. It's been fun kind of sharing what we do at Delta and at Delta TechOps. If you're interested in applying for a position, or if you just want more information, feel free to go to the link that I provided in the chat. Otherwise, I hope you all have a great evening and keep climbing.
Thank
Thank you all. Have a
you.
good night.